On this episode of Low Bug Garage, I drag home a new project. I inspect it.
That's gonna be nice and comfy.
That doesn't look right. I do some repairs.
There, fixed.
But will it work?
A few minutes ago, I dragged something off the trailer. There's the drag marks. And there it is. Now this is an Oliver OC-3 crawler loader. I knew nothing about him up till yesterday, because I needed a break. I had started prepping this bus for paint and found a lot of rust. So now I'm peeling off the roof. Everything that attaches it is all rusted out, and that got a little frustrating. I also started to rebuild the Jeep transmission, and I kept running into big piles of rust. I wasn't having fun, so I knew I was doing it wrong. So I decided to take a break and browse Craigslist for a little while. And that's how I ended up with this slightly less rusty pile. But this looks like fun.
Nothing works on it, so I need to tow it back to the shop to take a closer look.
In the 78 minutes of research I did before buying this, I found out there's one problem that's common in all these early Olivers. First gear is too tall. They use a 3-speed transaxle.
The transaxle was in the back and connected with a short drive shaft to the engine and clutch assembly.
Apparently it's pretty much only good for field use pulling a plow. Anything else, it's too high geared and you burn up clutches. However, way back in the 50s they knew this, and there was an add-on fix. You had a Model A transmission right after the engine, then that reduces the gearing before it goes to the transaxle, and that fixes the problem. I knew I should look for 2 shift levers first.
I pulled this photo off the internet to know where they should be.
Got the first shift lever going to the transaxle. There's our 3-speed pattern. And then in front of that, we've got that. There's no second shift lever. Down there, you can see the clutch slave cylinder. That is an aluminum case transmission with some kind of chain coupler.
It basically is 2 regular sprockets with a double row piece of chain in the middle connecting them.
So right away, I knew I had something weird. Then I checked the engine. These came from the factory with a gasoline-powered, flathead 4-cylinder Hercules. Now, remember that gasoline-powered part? This one has an injector pump. Someone diesel swapped this. They added a piece here. Right there, you can see this is an overhead valve diesel. I don't know if you can read that far down there. It's a Nissan.
It looks like someone took a Nissan diesel with its transmission and then took the front half, along with all its associated gears, removed the rear half with the actual shift lever part, and then used this half transmission assembly as a gear reduction unit going to the main transmission. I like how this guy thinks. Obviously, what I had in front of me was a work of art. I'm assuming that was the guy's name who built this. But there were a few flaws. In some minor areas, like where the tracks attached to the frame, there were bolts missing. Apparently they had done the bolt delete. Somehow it's still holding together. I'm not sure about putting a lot of weight on that with those missing. Looks like the suspension did a self-lowering by breaking the spring in half and dropping down a little bit. For better stability, I guess. I found the real suspension. This seat is mounted to a leaf spring. That's gonna be nice and comfy. There's definitely been oil leaking out of the final drive units on this side. The thread on the track adjusters may be a bit of an issue. Look at this track, is sagging pretty bad. It looks like when it's tight, it rubs on that hydraulic hose. That's the high pressure side. The oil filter is actually hitting these loader arms. That might become an issue. The actual loader part looks pretty good, even though it's had a few repairs here and there. That's some serious welding. Now if you look under here, you can see the curvature of the original hood. That is one solid piece of steel protecting it.
So if anything falls out of that loader bucket, that front end's protected. The bucket actually has cracks forming in the corners and right in the middle. That's a big piece of threaded pipe. Not sure what that's used for. Now this loader wasn't actually made by Oliver. It's a Ware loader by Ware Machine Works. A lot of these old crawlers were made by the company as a bare unit, and then loaders or blades or whatever were attached afterwards. On the back we have an implement with one huge ripper tooth. It's a John Deere implement. Looks like the ends are cut off, so it probably used to be a bigger one. It looks like it hooks up with a standard 3-point mounting system. There's a pin there, a pin up here, then another pin down there. And that connects to this system here. Now this definitely wasn't originally with the tractor. This was all added on with, well, that might be 3/8 or so pieces of angle. And has a hydraulic cylinder on either side to lift the whole thing up and down. So this can use any standard 3-point attachment and just lift it with this. I did see a plate on this back one, Earthco Dozer. Never heard of it. They made plates, so they had to be good. Definitely not the original air filter. I like the plier flared edge. The exhaust comes out the manifold, goes forward, then it just goes that way into wherever, like the loader arm. There are an awful lot of hydraulic hoses, and they all look about the same. When we're talking high pressure hydraulic lines, I don't know if you can call this patina. I think what you could call this is a future surprise shower with hydraulic moisturizer. The steering levers have some play in them. There's an adjusting bolt here. The arm that actuates the brake has a groove cut into it. That's supposed to match this groove on the nut on this side. So someone's flipped those around. I have a feeling they might have been out of adjustment and tried to get a little more. And both sides are like that. So somewhere under that cover, there's an issue with those brakes. We got parts and bolts. That's good. What are the bolts that were supposed to hold the track on are in here? Wrong color. Wonder what these are from. Oh, battery box. We'll need that. This looks like it's a different color, so that was added on later. The wire to track distance on the main power cable is slightly less than optimal. I don't know if the term patina can apply to wires either. I think this is more imminent electrical fire. I like the railroad spike added as a footstep. Makes it easier to climb up here. Now the fellow I bought this from was not the guy that built it. My understanding was it was laying out in a field and he actually bought it from the estate of the guy that built it, or something along those lines. So he didn't know if any of this stuff worked. Sounds like the people he bought it from had seen it work at some point in the past, but that was a long time ago. But the seller did come prepared. He knew the current price of scrap metal and had this weighed. A little over 6,300 pounds. I saw a few minor problems, but I saw enough things to encourage me to make me think this thing is worth saving. Like these sprockets. There's still a flat spot on the top of these teeth. Those can go down to sharp points and still operate. The pins barely feel worn at all either. I checked the overall height on these. There's still plenty of meat. There is a lot of life left in this track system. So I couldn't get it for scrap value, but I didn't pay a whole lot more. And I got it delivered. Now that it's mine, I've got to figure out how to make all this stuff work and do something useful. That might be the starter button. Probably a throttle. Notice the teeth are points, so they're actually ramped when you move it in both directions. If they wanted this lever to lock down, they'd make square cutouts so that it couldn't move either way. If they wanted to ratchet, they'd make a ramp one direction, like an emergency brake, so you can pull it one way and not go the other. This is meant to move over those ramps in either direction. That screams throttle to me. I love the massive hydraulic hoses. That looks like it might be a diverter valve, which changes these hoses to operate that. I'll just pull the levers and see what happens. This huge box looks like it was added for all these gauges, probably when the engine was put in. Claims it has 168 hours on it, but it's probably just the hours on the meter, not anything else. There's a service meter, and it's in the green, so that's good. We should be all set now. Looks like this engine has a block heater. That could be handy. On that alternator, it appears to be something on the back. Maybe a vacuum pump? There is hydraulic oil in it, and it doesn't look like a milkshake. That's a real good sign. Hydraco. Still haven't found an engine dipstick. There's gotta be one somewhere. I see something. Where does it go? Oh, yep, there we go. Got a dipstick. Oil's a little black, but again, no milkshake. Now the other thing I want to make sure of that I learned on this truck is I have a way to shut this thing off. So let's figure out how we turn off the engine before we try to start it. I found what looks like a cable operated shut off. And the cable goes that way. There we go. Now I'm gonna go pull the cable, see if that thing moves. Looks like it's working. This looks like some kind of primer pump. It's spring-loaded. Doesn't really move necessarily. Let's just ignore that for now. Check, do we have antifreeze? I don't see anything. We'll just ignore that for now too. Here's the fuel tank. Let's see if we see anything in there. There's something liquid in the bottom. Let me get a stick. Yeah, there's liquid. It smells mostly like diesel. Maybe a little like paint thinner, but mostly diesel. We'll just call that good. For some reason the starter's disconnected. Hopefully just reconnecting it makes it work again. I've got a battery for go. I've got a board to put over the air filter for stop if we need it. Let's see if we have sparks, see if anything's shorted. Looks like we're good there. So one of these two starts it. Don't know which one. I'm gonna press a button and see what happens. Nothing. I'm gonna attach the cheater button. Maybe that's why this was disconnected. We'll just re-disconnect that. Now let's see what happens. Huh. Alright, two things are happening. One is bees are coming out of it. The second is turning over. And the third is I see smoke. Smoke is a good sign. Wondering about the bees though. I didn't see any nests. Might want to give this a minute to let them evacuate. Now it looks like this engine has glow plugs, and that looks like a solenoid to control them, and it's got a wire feeding up that way. This might be for the glow plugs, and that one for the starter. I think the key problem I'm having is that key. I bet that key is needed in order to turn on the power to the starter button and the glow plug button. So let's fix that right now. Looks like this whole panel removes pretty easy. Let's see what's inside there. Hopefully that's not where the bees are. All right. Let's try to free up some of those wires. There's the switch. I also noticed this oil pressure line isn't connected to anything. And whatever this service thing was isn't connected to anything either. I might need to find the other end and see if it's going to pour oil out when I start it. But for now, we can get to that switch. The key switch has been replaced by a regular toggle switch. You can see what happens when I use this. Turn the switch on. Nothing happens. That's probably good. We'll hit this button. Nothing happens. Hit this button. I don't know if anything happens. Still don't see anything. And that meter isn't moving at all. That may have been a waste of time. My switch is on. I'm going to try hitting the button that may be glow plugs for a few seconds. And now try it. Still getting black smoke, but no fire. Wonder what happens if we hotwire those glow plugs to a button. Another one of these handy buttons came in the bus. So we're going to hook this one up to the glow plugs. Brand new. It's weird having new stuff. We have preheating. I hear the solenoid click. I think I started to hear something there. That's looking hopeful. I'm gonna let that starter cool down a little bit, maybe charge the battery a little, and give it another try. While I was letting the battery charge, I figured I'd look at this throttle lever here, because I figured I might want to be able to adjust the speed of the engine. Now this lever doesn't want to move, so I'm just going to oil that up and hopefully it starts moving. So I follow the cable. So the cable goes down here and underneath, but it goes to the other side of the engine. not to the injector pump where I expected. It goes up to here, to what looks like a throttle blade inside the intake. And that is completely shut off. I figured I'd better look into this. According to the valve cover, this is an SD22 diesel. What I found is they came with a lot of different types of injection pumps depending on the application, but when you see something that looks like a throttle body on it, it's probably from a 720 pickup. Those have a vacuum operated governor, so that is probably the throttle that adjusts the airflow and that triggers the fuel change in the governor. That looks like my throttle, and I got the lever moving. It's a little rough. Got a little bit of throttle. There's more throttle. Not sure where I should be to actually fire this off. Now I have this set to partial throttle. Let's see what happens. It's close. It wants to go. Ooh, we're almost there. Check your RPM with your feet. That might get a guard someday, eventually.
So it was time to start playing with the levers.
Drop the idle down as far as it goes. Gonna try that other lever to kill it. There we go. I actually forgot I didn't have coolant. Shouldn't have let it run that long, but it wasn't too bad. Hopefully it's okay. I hear those motors are durable. So now I'm going to add coolant and check for leaks and all the other stuff I should do and probably should have done already. Added coolant. Now it's coming out the hoses. There's also a good sized puddle down there, but it doesn't look like it's coming out of the engine. So that's the other thing I worry about is cracks there. Anything here, it's pretty easy to fix. So let's try warming this up a little bit. Figure this stuff out. So we try. That doesn't move. That could be important. So I think that is what does this. Spray some oil on there. We'll see what happens. I'm going to try tapping in and hopefully it bounces back. Or we could break the handle. That's a possibility. That is not what I needed. It kind of looks like this handle unscrews. So I'm going to try. Oh, I could just turn the whole valve and that pops it free. There we go. Let me reattach my new handle. There, fixed. Now I need to work on the clutch. Which means I need to lift the bucket up. Luckily, I got this winch here still, so I can make sure the bucket stays up. There. That's not going anywhere now. I also put a wood block under here for added safety, because I'm going under. Why don't you come under with me? We'll explore together. This thing has pretty good ground clearance. That's not bad. Absolutely no protection on the oil pan though. That's not necessarily good. That only matters if we hit something. Okay, now we have a Nissan transmission and slave cylinder. Luckily it does have a bleeder on it. It looks like the bleeder's on the bottom. Should be on the top, but we'll see what we can do. Oh, we got fluid coming out, dripping directly on me. Can I get to the clutch pedal from here? Yep, there's my hand. I could do this. All right, it leaks slightly faster when I press the clutch pedal. I don't see any air. That's plumbed into the clutch line. I have no idea what that is.
I looked it up later. According to Nissan, it is a clutch dampener assembly.
I've done a lot of bleeding on this clutch system. I think I got all the air out, still nothing. When I push on the pedal, fluid comes upwards, and I've seen some black chunks floating around in there. So I bet the rubber inside is all deteriorated. Going under the assumption that if that motor came in a 720 pickup, the other parts did too. I looked up a clutch master for a 720 pickup. The local parts store has one in stock, 20 bucks. Got the new cylinder, looks identical. The new clutch master cylinder is installed. While I did that, I got to admire this clutch pedal. That looks like the original pedal, but it's obviously been cut off and re-welded. Looks like all new brackets there. We might have a clutch. The hydraulic level went down considerably after using the hydraulics, and it sounded like it was picking up air. So we're just gonna fill that up. The dipstick has 4 marks on it. I don't know which one we're supposed to use. I'm gonna just dump all of this in. It'll use it eventually.
The hydraulics still didn't sound quite right, but I figured I'd just ignore that for now. The important thing is, it moves. The half transmission worked great. The first gear speed wasn't too fast at all. The loader seemed to lift high enough too. You could load a real full-size truck with this one. The steering even worked turning both left and right. This is getting fancy here.
It works. Well, that was a fun little project. I'm real happy with how everything seems to come together, and it looks like it's going to work pretty well. There's a lot to do. I didn't work this very hard because I still haven't checked oil in the final drives or the transmission. I still have the oil pressure gauge to deal with. I've seen some spots on the ground, so I think some oil is coming out of the engine somewhere on the other end of that hose. Looks like it wasn't coming out that fast, but I got to take care of it. Got to take care of coolant leaks, get the electrical system sorted out, a few little odds and ends. But all the basics work. And with a modern 80s engine in it, I'll be able to get parts for this thing. The tracks look like they'll last a long time. Hydraulics are universal anyway, and I got a welder. So I'll be able to get this thing going pretty well. This was an awfully fun little diversion, and now I can get back to those projects I was supposed to be doing and have something new to think about when those get boring. Hope you guys are having fun too, and we'll see you next time. The oil level barely moved at all. Those couple little drips weren't a big deal. I'll get to fixing that eventually.
On the other hand, the hydraulic fluid might need immediate attention. That doesn't look right. I think I'll work on this next.